Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Duke Football Coverage Podcast, brought to you as always by Bull City Coordinators. Follow us at our website, bullcitycoordinators.com. Follow us on Twitter at DukeFB Coverage. We are on Reddit. I think it's Bull City Coordinators. Probably dropped the ball with the brand recognition and keeping it the same there, but whatever. You can find us on, I feel like I've signed up for every social media account. Whether Twitter is going to exist tomorrow, I don't know, but I'm on Mastodon for whatever purpose that serves. I don't know. Anyway, you can find us. You know where we are, and you know where to listen to us. You can find us anywhere you listen to your podcast. But more important enough with that rambling, our next guest played football at Duke for one season in 2021 after transferring in from Presbyterian College. Go Blue Hose.
Yes, sir.
He played primarily on special teams, and after that went on to play on a championship team in Finland last year. And now he is on an Arena League roster with the Albany Empire. Again, great name. Can't say that enough. Colby Cambpell, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, man. Happy to be on.
Well, thank you for making time to do this and to catch up and let us know what you've been up to. And for those of you who are maybe listening for the first time, as I've also branched out to Facebook, mainly to check in on my dad a little more regularly of late, you'll find that what we do is we start off with where the former player, coach, or whomever is now, and then we get into the Duke football part of it after going through all that. So tell us how you ended up signing with Albany.
Yeah, so I had just finished up my season over in Europe and had a heck of a year, three-peated in our national championship, and had a really good season. And I'm still trying to keep the dream alive of making it to the highest level. And when I got back here, I talked to my agent. We were trying to figure things out. I had a bunch of teams in Europe all frame me, but after talking to some scouts, they really appreciate the game over here more. Even so, if it's like Arena's 8-man. So they appreciate it more in the sense that you can have a guy go over there because you're limited on Americans. You could have a guy go and break 10 tackles in one run and bust it for 80 and do that 3 times a game. And yeah, it looks good for the kid, but on the other side, you look at the tape and it's like, is that kid that good, or are those other players just not as good? And it's a hateful way to say it because I think European football is phenomenal. But in the sense of trying to elevate my game and whatnot, I decided to stick to a route over here. And I was in the XFL talks and USFL talks and whatnot. And we're still in talks with the guy in the USFL. But we're waiting until they start moving around rosters. So fingers crossed on that. But if not, just end up in Albany trying to get against some better competition. Guys that have, played football their whole life, guys that are former Division I guys and whatnot, some guys ex-NFL guys. And it's just a better way to keep, chomping at the bit and getting higher and higher as I go along.
Well, I hope the USFL works out with you. People who follow me on Twitter know I'm a big fan of that. I enjoyed watching a lot of that football last season, much to the chagrin of my wife and son, but we'll leave that for another day.
Of course.
I saw that you are listed as a fullback in addition to a linebacker for the Arena League roster, or for the Albany Empire roster. Tell us a little bit about that. Have you ever played fullback before?
Well, I played a bit of running back in high school. And actually, when I was at Presbyterian, I practiced fullback a lot for goal line situations. And my last game in Des Moines, I got a carry and for a 1-yard touchdown, and then I blocked for the one before that, which should have been a touchdown, but our running back slipped. But hate it for him. I got the score on it. But I played that a little bit. And in the Arena League, there's the thing called the Ironman rule. So everyone plays both ways. It's a way so you don't have to dress as many guys. And it's really good for me. And I should have mentioned that first off. That's also one of the reasons I chose them, was the fullback position. On my pro day, the Detroit Lions asked me if I had any film at fullback. And sadly, I didn't have any. So that's also another way for me to get film that I couldn't have gotten if I would have stayed in Europe or done another league. So if I get some decent film, I could end up in the Lions camp as well.
Well, We hope that'll happen. And I'm a big fan of power football and tight ends. And that, of course, involves a fullback. So hopefully we'll see a little bit more of that. I think it's a position that's kind of gone out of favor unnecessarily, especially when you have young quarterbacks and you need to rely on a strong running game. A fullback and a tight end are good ways to do that. But I want to talk to you a little bit about Finland and playing football in Finland. Tell us a little bit about what the football culture there is like, and also how you ended up there.
Yeah. So I'll start with how I ended up there. It was, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks after I graduated from Duke, and I was still living in Durham because I was paying for my lease. Me and Teo had actually did a year lease instead of, I think, 8 months or whatever. So I was like, I'm not going to pay my however much to have it and not live there. So I was staying there, and I was driving home to come to the lake. One of my buddies that played professional soccer had been back in town. And I get to Columbia, South Carolina, which is about an hour away from my house. And I get an Instagram DM from some like strange name. It's like literally says, are you interested in playing football in Finland? And I was like, this has to be fake. So me and the page goes back and forth. I look up his name. He's a real person. His name's Pekka Utarian, and he was our head coach. But he asked, our starting Mike got hurt. He broke his ankle in the first game. He was like, we need an American linebacker. We found you. We really like you. And I was like, yeah, let me talk to my parents and whatnot. He was like, well, the only thing is I need you here by next week. And this was on a Friday. I was driving home. So I ended up getting home, and I had been praying for an opportunity, and I told my parents before, if I get anything, I'm pulling the trigger no matter what it was. I love football too much. I have to keep going. And I kind of got there. My mind decided, and we got there, and I told my parents, and they were supporting. So turned around the next day, went back up to Durham, moved out of my apartment, and then was on a flight to Finland 2 days later. But that's kind of how it happened. Happened really, really fast. But the level of football over there it's nothing to be shrug a shoulder to. I mean, they have guys. There's a lot of Americans that end up in Finland that move to Europe and play a few years, and then once you play there for a few years, you're it's not that you get a citizenship, but within the leagues, you don't count as an American. So over there, you could have 3 Americans per team, but we played a team with 6 because 3 of their guys were older guys who ended up living in Finland because they loved it so much. And then the guy we played in the national championship, Christian Powell, was a practice squad guy for the Steelers for 2 years, I think. And there's guys. And then the homegrown talent, I forget his name. I know his first name's Elias, but he was a 5-star, and he just signed to Alabama. And he's born and raised in Finland and played high school ball over here and would go back to Finland during the summers and whatnot. But him, and then, we had a kid, Peter Lundstrom, and he played safety, and he could have played at PC when I was there. There's guys that could play. I'd equate it to the highest level where I played. I would equate it to good Division II football, if not mid-tier. Because, there are some teams that are terrible. So it's I would say good D2, the top teams, to bad D3. But, it's competitive nonetheless. I was very impressed, to say the least, from being the FBS level to the FCS level and then going over there. I thought it was just going to be one of those things where I just step on the field and it's no problem. And I talked to a lot of guys over there that were ex Power 5 guys over here and had played, and they were like, no, dude, it's real deal. And it really was. And there's a lot of guys over there that are younger and that could play in the U.S., but the only problem is they're not going to go get a 21-year-old from Finland that's just as good as a 18-year-old here in the U.S., and I don't have to spend $2,000 to bring them here. So they miss opportunities, but it's the sport's growing there. And women's football, surprisingly, women's football is actually really big there compared to the U.S. So it's like there's 4 divisions of football in Finland. It's Maple League, Division 1, Division 2, Division 3. And then it's the same thing for the women's league. So ranking in order of like popularity, it'd be the Maple League, which is the men's best division, and then I think it's called the Vater Malgia or something like that, which is Maple League but the women's Maple League, and like it's 11 on 11, like, and they're out there cracking stuff. Like it's like decent, like it's decent football. It's like comparable to watching like men's soccer and women's soccer. Like they do it right, they know what they're doing, and it's something fun to do on the weekends after we play. We'll go and like watch the girls play and support them and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, other than hockey, I would argue to say, well, hockey and Finnish baseball, which I don't understand at all, is the top 2. And I'd honestly put football third in their country.
Well, so did you enjoy your time there? Did you like playing there? Was it fun living there? I mean, you've talked a little bit about the game itself, but what was it like living there?
Oh, it's unbelievable. The hardest thing was, though, I didn't know this before I got there, but since it's so high, like that, I guess it's so far north that when I was there, it rarely, the sun rarely went down. So when I first got there, it was daylight for all but about 20 minutes. And that 20 minutes where it wasn't daylight, it's just dusk. So everything's still lit up. And I mean, it was strange. It was definitely hard sleeping for the first couple of weeks, but they bought me some nice blackout curtains. And like, instead of here of like closing your curtains, it's like a curtain on a trolley, curtain on a trolley, curtain on a trolley, curtain on a trolley. So there's 4 curtains. So like it's dark in the room, but if you open one of them bad boys up, it's broad daylight at 4 a.m. And then, I mean, the people are super relaxed. It's like very chill. The team, I loved my teammates. Like I still talk to a bunch of them till this day. I mean, if I ever go back to Europe, I'll definitely like have to make a stop in Finland. And I mean, I love the place because it gave me my first opportunity to play professionally, and like I'll forever be in gratitude and debt to them for that.
While you were there, did you ever get to try on Karhu shoes? People who follow my website, the podcast, everything know I'm a big fan of those shoes. They are the most comfortable running shoes you will ever find.
Yeah, I'd say about half the team has them, and that's like their go-to. Because I mean, over there, and this is more the culture side of it. Here how like people my age, more or less, you're all about like brands and stuff like that. Like you want to wear like Nike running shoes or like On Clouds or stuff like that. Like you care so much about it. But over there, it's like 110% like performance based. Like if I were to be like, oh, I need a pair of running shoes here, everybody'd be like, oh, I'll get Nikes or something. They'd be like, you probably want to get Asics or like Sauconys, but like those aren't the first thing that pops your head. And then they wear whatever they think is best fit and best for them, in a sense.
Yeah. Anybody who's listening, find an authorized Karhu dealer. The one here is not open on Sundays, which because of my work, it's hard for me to get there during the week and then B on a Saturday. So I do not have a pair that I'm using right now, and it is killing me. So Karhu, if you're listening, sponsorship. Let's set this up. Okay.
Let's do it.
All right. So your season went well though, right? You won a championship. It was a great time.
Yep. Undefeated, 14-0.
Nice. Good deal.
Yep.
Good deal. Well, you've talked a little bit about your ultimate football goals. You want to keep playing. You want to try to get to the next level. But let's talk about your background. Now, I listened to an interview that you did for the Steelers, and you mentioned you're sort of kind of from Aiken, South Carolina. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the town, well, I'm from Aiken County. And then the big city, I guess, well, it's not big, but compared to my town, I guess, it's Aiken. My school was South Aiken. It was in Aiken, but I live about 15 minutes outside of town, and it's a town called Montmorency, and it's like very, very small. It's out in the country, But I don't know if they did it at Duke, but when I had my like where I'm from in the program at Presbyterian, I had it at Montmorency, South Carolina. I'm not sure if they did it at Duke. I don't remember, but yeah, I mean it's a great town. I was able to like have four-wheelers and whatnot, have not our land that we own, but I mean it's just woods around and no one says anything to you. So I was able to be outdoors a lot when I was younger.
Well, you said you went to South Aiken. My wife went to Aiken High, of course,
Oh,
probably at a thumbs down to you.
huge thumb downs.
Yeah. Well, that was a much different time. She graduated, I think, in '01. So
Okay.
you guys would not overlap, but she grew up in Aiken, and my mom, as a kid, lived in Aiken for a while. My wife's
Okay.
dad worked at the Savannah River site,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm trying to stretch my memory here. My mom's dad worked there as part of a project. He wasn't employed by SRS, but then they moved out to like
Mm-hmm.
Missouri or somewhere. So we've got some Aiken roots ourselves.
Nice.
And of course, I'm from South Carolina. I guess that explains why. So did you room with Mateo? You mentioned Teo was your roommate
Yes,
earlier.
sir. Yeah, because so in the central Savannah River site, like area, it's called the CSRA. Um, they accumulate every year the best 26 players, and we have like a big banquet, and they give us like these Johnson rings. They're really nice. But I guess Teo was a junior and I was a senior. But we'd kept up with each other. We'd went to camps together around the area and whatnot. But me and Teo really became friends around that time, and then Teo, I think, had came in second for offensive player of the year. In my senior year, I had got CSRA player of the year, but we had met each other through, various award ceremonies and stuff like that. And then when I got the offer to Duke, he hit me up on Twitter and reached out to me. I also knew Lummy Young beforehand as well, because me and Lummy played together in the Shrine Bowl, and we also played against each other. I think the third game of my senior year.
Now you went from just outside of Aiken to Presbyterian. Tell us a little bit about what PC is like. I mean, I know about the football culture there from growing up in South Carolina.
Yeah,
But people who listen to the podcast may not. So educate us on
yeah,
that a little bit.
yeah. When I got there, it was going well. They had just uh moved back to not back to. They just moved to Division One. They were a powerhouse D2 program in South Carolina for the longest. Um, Presbyterian actually has I think I don't know the number, but there are a lot of like really good coaches that have made stops at Presbyterian for coaching. Or like Bobby Bentley was one of them I can name off the top of my head. Bob Strock, a lot of those guys that are like real known in South Carolina, high school and college level. A lot of those guys did go to PC, and that's where they coached and played and whatnot. Um, but we're the Blue Hose, named after the Sox. It actually has nothing to do with our mascot, but our mascot wears blue hose, so that's why we're called the Blue Hose. But we had a real rich tradition of what we done, and my freshman year, I came in on scholarship, and they actually cut scholarships for the entire program. So they're in a conference now. It's called the Pioneer League, and that's the conference with like Davidson, San Diego, a lot of those schools that are basketball schools with really small football teams, which we're not. But they cut it without telling anybody, and we were kind of all stuck in a weird position going into my sophomore year. And I think it was the first year the portal was a thing. So, I mean, everyone on the team hit it. We went through spring practice with, I want to say 42 guys, and 6 of them were punter, kickers, long snappers. There's a point in time I saw, I guess it was my freshman spring. We had kickers playing backup receiver. Our long snapper was playing backer. I was playing some running back. We had 4 or 5 guys going both ways, and it was a really humbling experience as an athlete. But we stuck together. We had a bad season my sophomore year, but nonetheless, we were playing a conference schedule with I think we had 15 kids on scholarship. and then the rest was practically walk-ons. And then it went downhill again the next year. But going into my senior year was something that like I could really appreciate because I was able to see a program hit rock bottom, and then being a head cap, like I was the head captain from my sophomore to senior year. So I was able to see and like help rebuild a program from like the ashes to like us being, because my senior year we had a winning season, and it was the first winning season in I think 10 years. But Presbyterians had its ups and downs, especially lately. I'm sure everyone's seen the guy they hired the year before last, Kelly, the guy that goes for it on fourth down and does all the onside kick stuff. And so they're just now returning to a sense of normalcy. They got the guy that was the ex Florida Tech coach, and he's a really good guy. And I think they're on the path to being where they need to be again, nonetheless.
Well, you played linebacker there, and tell us what we should know about playing linebacker and what is involved with being the quarterback of the defense.
Yeah, that was about to lead it off with that. We're the quarterback of the defense. You know, you have to know everything. I mean, you have to know what everyone else on the field is doing. You have to know their assignments, and then you have to know what the offense is doing in a sense. You know, when they line up in a certain formation, you have to look and you have to start barking calls and letting everybody know what to look for. You got to check the receivers, let the DBs and the safeties know what route combinations you could get, what to look for. And, you know, not to toot my own horn, but this is for and I like Shock is a prime example of it. You just have to be a really smart football player, and you have to know what's going on all around you. You have to be an athlete, but you still have to be strong. I personally think it's one of the hardest positions to play next to like DB or something like that, just because you're required to cover guys. Some backers will get put on a slot corner and you'll get on an island. You have to play a man-to-man. But then you also have to get in the run. You have to go from covering somebody that runs a 4-3 to somebody that's 340 pounds and get off of them. So you have to do a lot. You have to control the team, control their emotions. And I've always said that from what I've been and what I've tried to be is, you know, the middle linebackers normally, yeah, he's the quarterback of the defense, but usually he's the heart of the team, like the emotional leader, the guy that gets out there. I usually think that's a defensive guy over a offensive guy in many aspects.
Well, the offensive guys get too much credit anyway, right?
Oh, yeah, so no doubt about
it. Well, so talk a little bit about you transferred for your last year of eligibility. You went from PC, you ended up at Duke. What made you decide I'm going to transfer out? I'm going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, so I kind of had to leave. So Presbyterian. If you don't know this, if a school's named a college, they have no graduate programs. So
College of Charleston, baby. I know all about it.
Great school.
Yeah, man.
Great location. But yeah, so they have no graduate programs, and I never redshirted. So I had a COVID year, and my COVID year was wherever I wanted to go. And I was about to commit to Montana, and I was in class, and I got a DM from Coach McGrath. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Just shooting it back and forth. And he's like, "Can I get you on a call?" And my professor that I was in class with was actually my advisor. And I told him, I was like, "Hey, like I'm going through this. Like if I need to step out," because I mean, you got small classrooms at Presbyterian College, especially I was a biology major. So once you get to your last few classes, your senior seminars and whatnot, you maybe have 10, 15 people in there. And I looked at him and I was like, pointed to my phone. He just pointed me out the door, went outside, and was on the phone with McGrath for the rest of the class period, and had a good conversation with him, sent him some film, transcripts, whatnot, came back. The teacher was like, he's like, "Oh, how'd it go? Who was it?" And it was like Duke. And he like grabbed me. It was like, "If you don't go to Duke, I'm going to kill you." I was like, all right, Dr. Scholl, like calm down. But no, I mean, it was good. And then, so it took forever because I had to see if I could get in. I had to apply and go through the whole application process. And I had Montana. I mean, Montana was a heck of a powerhouse at the time. They beat Washington that first game that year, and Montana's like giving it to me like, oh, if we play Duke right now, we beat them. Like, we're better. Like, and they're like, and I mean, but they're giving it to me and whatnot, and I'm like, I know, but like, I have to look at this, kind of past football in a sense. It's if I get a degree from Montana, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. If I get a master's from Duke, I could pretty much get a job wherever later on in life. So it was that, and then Montana's 16 hours, 16, 20 or 16, one of the two. And then Duke was 4 hours away. So it was kind of, my future's better. My dream was to play Power 5 football, and it kind of lined up in the sense. And I thought that would be better for my future if anything were to ever happen to me to where I couldn't play anymore.
Well, looking at the background in your room, I think Montana may have been a better choice for your hunting hobby.
You want to know something crazy?
All right.
I don't even hunt. These are all my dad's.
Or we'll just cut that out of the interview. We'll cut that one out. We don't need to embarrass you on that one.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
All right. So you, you mentioned the college issue, and there's no grad program. And you were talking about how great College Charleston was. Now I'm just thinking about in my mind how great College Charleston was. It's a place to be, man.
Oh yeah. I'm going there for New Year's.
Oh man, that's gonna be wild.
I went there last year. I'll run it back. Got a lot of friends that live there.
There was a bar downtown, and this is not, nobody's going to care about this, but it's my podcast, so I'm going to talk about it. There was a bar that we used to go to called AC's.
I've been there.
Oh yeah, a great place. They had like $2 beer of the month.
Yeah,
it was fantastic because we didn't have any money.
They got the pool tables in there too, right?
Yeah, near the back.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's right on what they tried to call Upper King or whatever. I don't know, some weird marketing program. It's right across the street, sort of from that downtown movie theater place.
Mm-hmm.
And they made some of the best cheesesteaks I've ever had in my life there.
Really?
Yeah.
I might have to try one and see if they still got it going on.
I hope so. There was a guy. So we went to this dog park downtown. It was kind of an unofficial one, my wife and I, and we met this guy who had grown up in Philly, and he said the AC's cheesesteak is one of the best you'll ever find.
No way. Compared to one in Philly.
Now that's like 20 years ago, but still.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's still got that's you know what to look for when you're down for New Year's.
I'm about to say the way AC looks on the inside, it might be the same person back there cooking.
That is, people who have not been there are not going to appreciate what you just said, but man, that is.
No, it's a great time.
Well, when we were there, they still allowed smoking. So imagine that place full of cigarette smoke. Oh,
yeah,
it hurt.
Prime.
Oh, it hurt, man. I can't be around it now. I cannot be. Not that I was ever a smoker, but I cannot be around it because you can't go anywhere where you used to go into restaurants and there was a smoking section and everything.
Yeah.
And it was but that's all gone now. So it's impossible to be around it. But enough of the memory lane stuff. Why don't we talk about the 2021 season at Duke? That was a rough season. We know that. But you get in there, you go from playing linebacker and you're primarily playing special teams, right? So talk to us a little bit about what that transition was like for you and kind of how you had to adjust to that.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was tough. I went from being the guy at the school, and not only at the school, but at the FCS level. I mean, I was the runner-up for National Defensive Player of the Year, but I mean, I played all special teams at Presbyterian. We didn't have depth. If you thought that 21 team didn't have depth, you should have saw the 20 Presbyterian team, because we had no depth. But I played. I mean, at PC, I was a 4-year starter on kickoff, punt, and punt return, and then I played kickoff return for 2 years. But I told Coach Spang, he was our head coach. Me and him got really close over the years. But I was like, "Look, Coach," I will play 3 special teams if I don't have to play kickoff return. And he was like, "If you're being serious," I was like, "I am being completely serious. And then first thing when I get to Duke, they're like, "Hey, you're starting on kickoff return." And I'm like, Jesus Christ. But I mean, it's if you've ever played football, like if you're listening, you know what I'm talking about. When you get put on kickoff return, unless you're the returner, you're like, oh my God, this is about to be terrible. Because you just sit there and you catch people running down and they like, I mean, someone's running full speed and you got to catch them and redirect them. But I mean, it was fine. It was good. And then, I mean, I played special teams before. So, playing there was, it wasn't bad. I mean, I had higher hopes. I was running with the ones and twos during camp and, I kind of just fell off. It hurt me because I was the one guy in the linebacker room that had to learn both positions. And so like all the other guys that were already there were already like, you're either Mike or you're Will. And I was the tweener. So I was the two at both positions, but I was also going through school because Fuqua started a few weeks before camp. So I was actually in the middle of school during football camp, which made it really tough. And I think that's what affected me the most of not really playing as much backer as I thought I should have. I had to focus on school because if I didn't pass the first semester, I wouldn't have been able to even play. So I'd go from practice to class, and we'd run from the Fuqua building back to the go for football, go back home and stay up 2 hours doing homework. And then same thing again, 5:30 the next day.
Well, let's talk a little bit about how the season went itself. And I don't envy you having to go through what you talked about with your master's program. It sounds like similar. That and football sounds a lot like being a trial lawyer. You start off with the loss to Charlotte. Well, I can tell you the trial losses are probably about as bad as the loss to Charlotte that I'm about to ask you about. But
yeah.
So that game you lose, although it was close and there were chances to win. But then you have the 3-game winning streak. And that Kansas game was amazing. I mean, I remember being there and I thought, okay, great. This team's turned a corner. You may not have a winning season, but by God, you're going to be competitive every game.
Yeah, of course.
That's the way it felt. So walk us through that first 4-game stretch of the season, how you guys are feeling.
Yeah. Well, I think the loss itself was, we came in on a high horse that we had no business being on. We came, we're playing UNC Charlotte. We smoked them last year. We returned a bunch of guys. Almost everyone's back. It's going to be the same ordeal. And then I remember coming out when we after like warming up and whatnot. And it's not, no one was like, wow, like this is crazy. But it was like, because it was full. And we're on the sideline and we're like, hey, this is like a lot better environment than we expected it to be. But it was never like in doubt. It was never one of those things. It was like, all right, like we're kind of impressed with what they like pulled off. And then, once the bullets started flying, we just couldn't not say outmatch them, but we'd get ours and they'd get theirs. And there at the end, we went down and scored and we just had to stop them. And they went down and, won the game. And I think that was just like our Achilles heel that entire season, though. It was really just tackling and, miscues on defense. Because it's some of those games that were close, like the Georgia Tech game, is we should have won. I hate to say should have, we could have. But a lot of stuff is just one or two things where we were out. And then that 3-game winning streak was when the defense was clicking. Like the defense was playing how we should. We weren't making as many mistakes. Guys were flying to the ball. We were forcing turnovers. Like, what game was it? Wayne chased, I think it was Kansas. Wayne chased the guy down, break away, and makes him fumble. It might have been Kansas or the game, or no, it was Northwestern. But, we were firing on all cylinders. And then, I don't know. I think we kind of hit a wall. I think we got, like I said in the beginning, we got on our high horse and we thought we were a lot better than we were in a sense.
Well, you mentioned the Georgia Tech game. We could talk a lot about the defense you guys were dropped back into towards the end that allowed the touchdown to happen on the cover zero. But yeah. I don't really want to relive that right now. So I'm not going to ask you about that. So what you mentioned a little bit, kind of being on your high horse, but I mean the bottom that season just really fell out. It fell out fast once conference play
Yeah,
started. It was just like I don't know how to describe it other than the bag just broke. And
yeah.
other than the Pitt and Georgia Tech games, it was fairly one sided. How did you guys deal with that?
You know, I guess I can't really speak for the offense, but on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, offense was still putting up 24 to 35 points. Like they were putting points on the board and we just couldn't do anything. And it was one of those things, and I'm not blaming coaches or anything, and that's no position for me to be in to say anything, but we sit there and things happen throughout the season and we do something and over and over, but then there was never a change. We never changed anything with what we were doing. We never adjusted to things that would go on throughout games and whatnot. Like you said, the Georgia Tech game, you watch most of our games, we're in press man 95% of a game and we're not rolling guys. I mean, it's small things like that that kind of go unseen, I guess. And then there was honestly, it felt like there was a lot of animosity in the locker room amongst like the players and the coaches. I mean, there was a clear divide of you know me think not like me personally, but like as a player, like a player thinking we should be doing this, and the coach is no, we're going to do this because that's what we do, and we're going to keep doing it. And then you look at a player who's like, well, we're continuing to do this, and we're continuing to lose by 30, 40 points a game. And I think once that started flowing in the air, um, once those like arguments, the locker room talk, and like stuff like that, I think once that started going on, it was just a point in time where it was like, like we're just holding on because guys were, I mean, you're like seeing the way things are going. People are like, all right, he's out. Like coaching staff has to be gone. And it was like foreseeable in a sense. And a lot of the guys, I don't think wanted to really play for the coaches we had. And I mean, I started coaching high school football when I got back here from Finland. And in the month and a half, I learned it's like if your players don't like like love you as a coach, like they don't have to love you as a person, love you as a friend, but like if I respect you and I love like the way you coach me and the things you do, I'm going to perform above what I'm able to do, and I'm going to overachieve in a sense. And I don't think we had any of that. I don't think the relationships between players and coaches were that good. And then I don't I just I don't think we really had a culture. We didn't have an identity as a team. And in my opinion, from coming from somewhere where like we built something from nothing. Um, we had the 55, but the 55 was it like wasn't ours as players. It wasn't something that we formulated, like we bought in. It was something that was there from since Cut had been there, which is no knock on the 55 at all. I think it's like beautifully laid out and everything. But the way people are and the way kids are nowadays, like you have to keep things new. You have to keep it refreshed. You have to keep things at the level that it is, because if it's that old school style, which I had no problem, that's how my coach was at PC and I loved it. But that like some guys now, like that old school stuff just doesn't work for people. And it's another thing where I think it gets like players, coaches button heads and whatnot, and guys just aren't bought in anymore. I think and that's what I think that's what happened. Like people were bought in the beginning, and then metaphorically it hit the fan, and then guys started not being bought in and buying out, and then you're only as strong as your weakest link. And if you got one week when the whole chain's gonna break.
Well, you mentioned the 55. Tell us what that is.
It's alignment, assignment, start, finish, and execution. And that was Coach Cut's 5 pillars on how you should like how you should play football. And it's the 55, because if you can do those 5 things for 5 seconds, which is the average football play, you'll be successful.
Now, one of the things that you mentioned I wanted to come back to was you said the coaches had a mindset, well, this is what we're going to do because that's what we do here at Duke. That the other teams figured that out. I mean, that was the
100%.
That was the frustrating part. And I've talked to some other players about this is, if you keep running the same offense and the same defense that you've been running since 2012, and it's now 2021, that's 10 seasons that the other guys, the other coaches aren't stupid. They're going to figure it out and you have to make changes. So, and I want to come back to something that you mentioned about coaching yourself. Did you get a sense that when the players were saying, Coach, maybe we ought to do this, maybe we ought to do that, was it a sense that the coaches were not empowering the players to take ownership and be in control in some sense?
Yeah. I mean, they would. I'm trying to word this the right way. If I went up to a coach and I was like, I think we should do this, or can we do this because this, and you like justify why you say that. I'm the coach, you're the player. And if it's anything scheme related, that's what you get. It's no, oh, let me look at that. Like, that makes more sense. Like, no, it wasn't that. I mean, Gunner, I was good friends with Gunner. When did you ever see Gunner get under center and then step back and look to the sideline, or get under center, check a defense and change something? There was none of that. There was no power in the hands of like the players per se. That we didn't have opportunities to make things happen outside of the parameters of what they exactly wanted.
Well, it's interesting that you say that about Gunner, because I've interviewed other quarterbacks who, Dave Brown, when he was in the NFL, said, I wasn't allowed to check plays at the line of scrimmage. And I got killed playing with the Giants because you could have 9 guys in the box and we still had to run a run and play because that's what the head coach had called. And I don't understand that. I mean, I'm sure there's some reasons for it, but if you have guys who are wanting to take ownership and want to be control as someone who manages people, you have to give them a chance to do it, because if they don't feel invested, they're not going to want to work hard.
Exactly. And that's exactly what I think began to happen. That's why we, kind of just fell apart.
Well, let me ask you on a positive note. Well, actually, I want to come back to this first. I'll come back to that in a second. There was a lot of discussion online about a team meeting during a bye week where law enforcement officers came by, and then there was some fallout from that. Do you have any comments on that situation, how it went and what happened?
Yeah, it was very poorly put together. I don't think the way that they had went about it was intended. The result that happened, in a sense, like when they came there, I don't think it was meant to happen how it did, but they did a terrible job of conveying the message that they had, I guess, set forth. And it, in my opinion, I'm not a black student athlete, but like my teammates, I could tell like it made a lot of those guys like very uncomfortable. Like some of the stuff that they were talking about was just like you're looking around at each other like why is he saying that? Like things like that. And it was poorly planned. And then guys didn't want to be there as is, because it was a 7:30 meeting on a bye week. So we were supposed to have the day off, so everyone comes in. We had to come to the facility at 7:30. You get in trouble if you don't come. And like me, I didn't have class that day, so like that was my day to sleep in. But like, so people already were like not wanting to go, and then like they handled it so poorly that like it, and rightfully so, it should have blown up how it was. But it was, it should be disgraceful to police officers that were there, in my opinion.
Right. And I've had an opportunity to represent law enforcement officers in my career.
Mhm.
And to your comments about how the meeting went, that's not, those kind of things are not something that you can cover in an hour.
Yeah,
right.
of course. Mhm.
That's the kind of situation where you have to say, this is going to be part of an ongoing conversation, not we're going to have a one meeting and just kind of tell you from our perspective. If you're law enforcement and you want better feedback from the community, you have to listen to the community too.
Mhm.
And you two have to engage with each other and have a conversation, right?
Mhm.
So I could see where that would be poorly received. And then especially in the context of we're not too far away from what had happened with George Floyd and what had happened across the country. When I read all that, I kind of said, wow, okay. And then the coaching staff was not pleased with the players after that, apparently.
Yeah, they the way they said some of the because guys were like, after some of the things that were said, some of the guys were like smacking their teeth, which is completely respectfully okay. Like I was impressed that some of the guys didn't stand up and like leave or like say something. And they were mad that guys were like slouching and things like that. But like you said, you heard all this stuff, and the coaches never gave any of the players apologies either. There was no apologies of how it was handled poorly or how things went bad. Like it was just something that after it happened and came out, everyone just swept it under the rug and act like it never happened.
Well, those conversations are difficult ones to have. So the thing that's frustrating to hear about that, as we're talking about it now, is that as a coach who is a leader of young men and young black men,
mm-hmm.
you need to listen to them and not
100%.
You need to listen to them and hear their concerns, because that's part of the problem. We can talk about this with law enforcement, but in a lot of different situations, it's that people are not hearing each other and finding ways to communicate with one another. And that's the real problem. So it's there's other things with use of force that is beyond the purview of this podcast, but that's frustrating to hear that law enforcement didn't quite get, hey, we need to have a conversation with you guys. Let's talk about this. Let's find ways to make sure that if you're in a situation, nothing bad happens. So tell us from your perspective, and we'll tell you from our perspective, and we'll try to find a way to work together. That's how you have to have that conversation. And then it's particularly frustrating to hear that the coaches didn't say, okay, guys, what did you think went wrong? Let's hash this out and move on. Well, that's disappointing, but let's turn to some good stuff. Tell us your favorite. This is a terrible segue, but I'm not a journalist.
No, we're good.
No, I'm not a journalism major. It's okay. So tell us your favorite uniform combo. You can see my Zoom background. But tell us your uniform combo.
The all black. And I will say, I do think the Hellraiser is the best sticker. The all black with the Hellraiser on it is. I wish we'd have wore the black more when I was there. We wore it that one game for Georgia Tech, but that was the all black by far with the Hellraiser is, I think, is the best combo for sure.
There we go. That's what I like to hear. You're doing real well now. Things are looking great for you. That's awesome. Same thing with the Blue Devils right now. Their football team, 8-4. You got to be excited for the guys you played with to be having a good season, right?
Oh yeah, no doubt. I it's not one of these things where like I knew this was going to happen, but since I was still in school and I was training for my pro day, I was in the weight room every day. And I was around Feely, and I know you've heard a lot about him, but when I tell you, from the time I saw them guys working out, and like I talked to Feely and all those guys a lot when I was in there, because I was in there every day, but I could tell the culture had changed like overnight. And I honestly didn't think they were going to win this many, to be completely honest. But I was like, these guys are going to win 6 or 7, no doubt about it in my mind. And then they went on a tear. I mean, they're 5 or 6 plays away from, realistically being undefeated.
One really, really terrible phantom penalty against Chapel Hill College
Yeah, that's the one game I went to. It was 2 weeks after I got back, and I was there.
What? Okay. He barely touched the guy. The lineman was falling down, and I
Hmm.
can't remember who it was on the O line. He just puts his hands out, kind of to brace
It was
himself.
what's his name? I forget, the Arkansas State transfer.
Yeah. What? I mean, what?
But
Whatever.
he didn't even throw himself at him or anything.
It was a
The guy just
defensive
stood up.
move. He just
Hmm.
puts his hands out to protect himself, the offensive lineman. Whatever the purpose of that rule is not served by that penalty.
Not at all.
Garbage. Garbage call. Garbage. Well, so what we're gonna do, because we're recording this before the bowl game's announced. I'm gonna message you when we find out what it is. You tell me what your prediction is, who you think's gonna win,
Okay.
what you think's gonna happen. So this interview is gonna get posted a little bit later.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because of that, because I want to hear what you think about the bowl game. But before we get to that, hey guys, it's Future Ben coming at you with Colby Campbell's prediction for the Military Bowl, where Duke will play UCF. This is what he says. I'm going 35-17 Duke. I don't think UCF has enough on offense to put up a lot of points on this Duke D. I also think we will open it up and show some things in this last game that we haven't ran this year, allowing us to put up a few extra points. That's Colby's prediction. When you get a chance, let me know what your prediction is. Who do you think is going to win? What do you think the final score is going to be? And do you think we'll get creative on offense, maybe on special teams, maybe, in the kicking games? Let me know what you think when you get a chance. You mentioned the change in culture and the breath of fresh air. Everybody that I've talked to who's associated with the program now has said strength and conditioning, player performance. And you mentioned this, you didn't think they were going to necessarily get to 8-4. I was very pessimistic about the outlook as far as win-loss, but I thought they'd be competitive. How big of a difference does just having a new strength and conditioning guy make? Because, no knock on Calhoun or Pankel, I didn't see them having great seasons like this. But, I mean, they look like almost completely different players. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but, I mean,
yeah, of course.
It just looks like they've really turned a corner.
Yeah, I'll say, and love Coach Feely, great guy. Not Coach Feely, but Coach Durf, loved him to death. But the summer program at Duke was the easiest summer weightlifting program I went through in my 5 years. At Presbyterian, it was much harder. We worked a lot harder. From what I remember, we were big into, when I was there, Coach Cutcliffe was big into not having soft tissue injuries. So we never lifted heavy. Our runs were a joke. I mean, we'd go down to the Pascal and do agility stations for 2 hours, and that would be our conditioning. And it's like you get a break between every one. Just guys weren't getting in shape. I came in heavy on purpose to Duke. Came in at 236, 237, and I was going to drop back down to 225. And I did that for the main reason. I was like, all right, I'm going to get into a really good strength and conditioning program. They're going to lean me up, drop me down, and give me some more speed. And about halfway through summer, I met with Coach McGrath, and I was like, dude, like, this conditioning isn't enough. And he was like, yeah, you're gonna have to run by yourself. So I would go, and this was before camp happened. I would wake up and I'd go to workouts, go to class, and then run after class. And the reason I say that is because when you have a really good strength and conditioning program, it's comparable to those things like what they say with fraternities. You go through a lot of, and not like college fraternities, but like the word fraternity. Like you go through such strenuous stuff. You go through this stuff that like breaks you down and makes you want to quit. But when the entire team is going through that, you become that much closer because you're all going through this. You're going through the hardest thing you've ever been through in your life. So then once it becomes easy, you see your brothers and everyone succeed at the same time. So now you went from rock bottom in a sense to now like you see everyone elevating, everyone's getting better, everyone's getting stronger, everyone's getting faster. And it's just like the social media team done a phenomenal job of it. You see the type of energy the guys have. You see the togetherness they have. Like we were friends and stuff. Like when we were there, everyone was super close. But like the way the like togetherness is as a team, that's just like the preface of it. And then when you got guys that can play a whole game and not be winded, I mean, that speaks volumes. I mean, last year, like you said, like a lot of those games were lost in the second half because we just run out of gas. I mean, we'd be in it till halftime, third quarter comes and somebody puts 3 scores on us. It's because we don't sub guys and everyone's winded. I mean, now you got guys that aren't the weakest O linemen in the ACC. We're some of the strongest O linemen in the ACC. You got some of the fastest guy because we've done speed and agility, and you've drilled it with Feely. And then it's small things that like you don't really like. You're like, why were we getting beat? Was it scheme, this, that? Sometimes it's, football is really 11 one-on-ones some point in time. And you got to win on your one-on-one. And if someone's bigger, stronger, and faster than you, I mean, you're at a disadvantage, no matter how good your technique is. So you get a guy like Feely that comes in and makes everyone on the team 5% better of an athlete. You get them the amount of strength I've seen some of those guys get in the time that I was there for the spring is unreal. Like guys that were struggling benching like 225 are popping 275. Like you got guys that are in there like going crazy. And then people, when we were there, he wouldn't let us, Feely wouldn't let us come in and do extra stuff as much. I was a guy, when I was at PCI, I lifted twice a day until Thursday. I do the team lift and then I do our lift. So twice a day, twice a week. And then I tried to do that here and he wouldn't let me. He wouldn't let me come in and get extra work. He just do buys and tries. Feely encourages the guys. Come in, do something extra. We'll walk you through it. If we got a meeting, we'll make up for it. We'll come down, whatever you need to do. And he would really bend and break for those guys. And I mean, it shows, like, you see how excited those guys are on the sideline with Feely. You see how much they're balled into him as well. And I think that's the biggest thing with how it, how it really grows and makes a difference. I mean, you're stronger, faster, and then you're more of a team than ever.
So Durfee wouldn't let you guys do extra. And then your position coaches would say, work out on your own, which I'm always more of an
contradictive.
Yeah, well, exactly. Right. I'm always more of I like to do my own thing kind of a guy. I was never as big into team sports, but for that reason, because I always enjoyed I think that's why I ended up being a trial lawyer in large part, is because I like to more or less do my own thing. But I don't understand why you would have that mindset on a team sport like football that is, in particular, like you talked about being the quarterback of the defense. You got to know what everybody's doing. So why are you going off being a lone wolf and then you're playing for yourself? You're not playing for the team. You're playing at that point for the name on the back of the jersey, not the name on the front. That doesn't make much sense to me. Yeah,
it's just, they said that what I was told was like, when I would come in and try and get like an extra lift in or something, he was like, you lifted enough this week. You don't need any extra strain. You could risk an injury. And like, that was their justification. So,
well, they had a lot of injuries leading up. All right, I'm not going to get into it.
That's what I'm saying, man. We could, you have no, I mean, you could go for it for a couple hours.
Everybody out there who's listening, just go read the history of the David Cutcliffe era that I put on the site. Look at the what if era with all the injuries, but we'll go to that later. So looking back on your time at Duke, just tell us what you're most proud of for your year there.
I think I was kind of a silent leader, not a leader, like a silent leader towards like the players, but like towards the fans. I know I wasn't making plays like I was at PC. And I mean, I brought the energy when I could, and I tried to, keep everybody into it, stay into it, and lead as much as I could. I mean, I came from being a leader for a while, and, that was one of the things I was able to like help guys with, like Shaka. Me and Shaka became super close, and like Shaka was our guy. And Shaka came to me for a lot of stuff, and me and him would hash stuff out, and I'd help him as much as I can. So a lot of the younger guys and people like that would come to me for advice and whatnot. And I tried to give them everything that I could just to make them as good as they could be. And it's just one of those things where like, if you got a gift, keep giving it. And I couldn't necessarily put my gift on display, so I had to do it another way.
Well, we've had a good conversation, a very informative conversation. You've been a lot more open and on the record than some other guys have been with stuff they wanted to get out there, which I appreciate. It's going to make.
I have no problem.
I think people are going to like this interview. I'll just leave it at that. But if you listen, I always give people an open mic. They can talk about anything they want. Football, non-football, what you've got going on, the booming metropolis that is Aiken, South Carolina.
Yeah.
And anything you want, open mic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Right now, I'm training at a facility in Augusta, Georgia. Guy Brian Bowers was a PC alum. He played in the NFL. Doing that, working with him a little bit, training with him. He's getting me a job. Doing that until I go up to Albany. And I guess if you're listening, if there are guys, I don't know specifically yet who, but there will be, of course. If some of our guys hit the portal or whatnot, if they go to leave, like, support them. I mean, sometimes there's a lot of stuff that the fans don't know. There's sometimes times where coach tells guys, like, you need to go. And I'm not saying this is in Duke instance at all, but I've seen this before. When I was at PC, like, we had guys where coaches were like, I mean, you're never going to play for me. Like, if you want to play, like, you should leave. And there's things like that. So don't always pin it on the guy. I'm not a huge fan of the transfer portal at all myself. I think when guys leave, they need to have an actual reason to leave, not just something's hard or they're not playing. But the transport is a whole nother conversation. But, just support the guys, because it's not always their fault. And then especially those like graduate guys, like some of those guys, it's not that they don't love what's going on at Duke and whatnot, but like, they're searching for something that can benefit their career. Like, yeah, 2 Duke degrees are good, but Duke's not the best in everything in it at school wise. So like a guy could be trying to go somewhere to, he may know football's over and he has a year left and he wants to go somewhere and experience something new. Just support those guys, because, just like y'all, we're all human beings. We love, we hurt, we cry, we smile at the end of the day. And, we all wish the best for anybody that's a Duke alumni or guys that play there now. So just keep supporting those guys. And I think next year will be a really, really exciting year. Bringing back a lot. We're not rebuilding, we're reloading. And I think it's something we can finally say for Duke football, that it's back. And the way the ACC looks, I think it's wide open next year and we got a chance to make it. And, we just keep funneling support to those guys and do what we can for them, and, just be there when we can. And then if things get rough, I mean, yeah, be a critic, but don't be a a-hole about it. Be on guys, keep them accountable and all that, but don't be but yeah, I guess that's all I got.
Well, you mentioned what fans don't know about why players transfer. We need look no further than the fact that I don't think Jake Bobo ever got a ball thrown to him in the red zone. And how many touchdowns does he have at UCLA right now?
9, I think.
It's well, one might call it coaching malpractice, but right. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to imply that that's what happened.
I'm not going to agree or disagree.
Well, this has been a great talk. I do want to say there will be hopefully many more good interviews coming. Before we close, I want to give a shout out to Dad and also to Mom. I know you guys are going through a lot. It was great seeing you guys. recently, and hope to be back down there soon. And of course, everybody at the site on Twitter is hoping things go well, Dad, and we are all thinking about you. Now, keep listening to us wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out at the site, bullcitycoordinators.com. Follow us on Twitter at Duke FB Coverage. And as always, go Duke.